Hey everybody, today what I'm going to be doing is rebuilding my classic army saw. Did a game the other day and I was testing the range and it was this great crunching sound. It sounded like it just totally destroyed everything in the gearbox, so I'm opening up to take a look and see what happened. Getting the gearbox out is pretty simple. It's just two things on two little 2.5 millimeter hex bits on the side, on the left side of the gun. Take those out, and then the gearbox slides right out once you take the top cover off. I have my motor connector, or I don't have motor connectors. I have my wiring soldered directly to the motor. It's a little bit more efficient for battery life. Here you see me trying to get the soldering iron to work. It's not as efficient as I would like. Side, and I was surprised to see like nothing was wrong with the gearbox. Really, sounded like it was totally destroyed on the inside. You'll see in a second here. What happened was the bearing underneath the spur gear, the gear that's still in the gearbox there, that middle one. It's going to be hard to see in the video, but it actually, the inner, I guess, rail thing sort of got unseated and kind of shattered. But the rest of the gearbox didn't suffer at all, really. It's just kind of off-center, so I'm just going to replace that bearing. I have stock classic Army gears in there, by the way. Except for the spur gear, the sector gear rather is a classic Army hard torque with the heat-treated lower rails or tooth section. There's a replacement bearing that I got out of this deal at eBay. It just pops right back in, and I'm good to go. I'm still going to reshim it because anytime you install gears in a gearbox, you just want to reshim it, and this is basically like installing a new gear set. So here, I'm going to be replacing the O-rings because the air seal's not as good as I would like. I have a regular O-ring on that piston head there. I ordered a bunch of O-rings from McMaster. I'm going to be using those. The first is replacing the main O-ring on the piston head, and next is replacing the tiny O-ring on the inside of the air seal nozzle, which is the second one I just grabbed. So now I'm lubing up that O-ring, the main piston O-ring, so that it slides easily against the inner surfaces of the piston head there. And the O-rings that I got from McMaster are oil and chemical resistant, and so the argument that goes back and forth about whether white lithium grease damages O-rings is sort of irrelevant because this O-ring is designed to handle it. And here you see me removing the O-rings from the inside of the air seal nozzle. Again, replacing it with an O-ring of the same material. So again, the whether or not the rubber is damaged by white lithium grease is irrelevant because the O-ring's designed to handle that. You can see the piston there. I've Swiss cheesed a little bit. It's the first time I really tried that. I haven't really noticed much of a increase in rate of fire. It's just to see if I could do it and see what would happen in the long run. Because I don't really do speed builds, and that's really a speed build thing. You see here, well, you can't see it, but the air seal is actually much better than what it was before, because I think the O-ring on the inside of that air seal nozzle was starting to go. Let's see. Next, you can see here checking the air seal here. Pretty good. It's an SHS full metal tooth piston, by the way, and the teeth on the piston are very hard. So here I'm reshimming the gearbox, being sure to reassemble the gearbox completely every time with all the screws and whatnot as I'm checking this out. So here I'm just checking the spin before I seal it up again. Next is reinstalling the motor. That's a Teenley 35,000 RPM motor. I wasn't really going for a speed build this time around. or I wasn't really going for a high rate of fire that when this saw. Because for me, the main purpose of the saw is to just keep shooting so that your team can move up. And the best way to do that is to just lower your rate of fire so you can keep shooting no matter what for as long as possible without having to reload. So the rate of fire on the saw is actually around 20 rounds per second as opposed to like 20, 25 or so. That was me polishing out the hop-up chamber just to make sure everything is as consistent as can possibly be. And I couldn't remember if I'd polished this barrel already, so I'm just doing that here. Again, to make the inner surface of the barrel as uniform as possible so the BB travels through it more consistently each time. For that, I use brass polish, and I run 9mm cleaning patches that I cut to size. I run those through until the thing comes out clean, until the patch comes out clean, and then I run patches soaked in rubbing alcohol through until they come out clean. Here I'm polishing the I guess what would be the equivalent of the part of the hop-up in like an M4 that interacts with the magazine. I'm just polishing that out to make sure BBs slide through there as easily as possible. And I'm using my finger on the back there to keep excess polish from slurping around all the inside of the body there. I'm using vice grips to hold the cover out of the way. Gearbox is all assembled, and this is me testing the rate of fire. It's about right where I wanted it. The motor that I'm using has a lot of torque, but it's very, very slow. That trigger switch, by the way, I don't know if you saw earlier, it's also ordered from McMaster. It's designed for a higher amperage than your stock Classic Army or Echo 1 trigger switches, and they are about $1.50 each, so it's much cheaper.